Kyle, you've been running content marketing now for over a decade. When you think about deploying good content right now, what's different in the execution of content than when you started over 10 years ago?
Man, that is a loaded question. It's interesting right now because I would say what hasn't changed, but at the same time, the fundamentals are the same. So like what hasn't changed is you still need to focus on what are my goals, who's my target audience, and what value can I provide to them through content, right? But everything in the like macro landscape has changed. Google's being disrupted by AI tools right now. People are favoring YouTube and TikTok and video platforms. I don't know about you, but most of the newsletters I read are like from an individual who has a Substack, Beehive, or ConvertKit account. I think consumer habits are changing. And so marketers need to figure out, okay, I still want to provide value, build a content strategy, but at the same time, I need to figure out who's my target audience and how are they spending their time. And so 10 years ago, we were running the playbook of let's rank in Google, let's acquire traffic, let's convert that traffic on our site. So we were looking up keywords. We were trying to find keywords with medium to low difficulty. Then we wanted to write blogs that met those keywords and could rank, and then ultimately bring traffic in and convert them on an offer or a product. And it was a very predictable model. We were reverse engineering the content's performance in Google, so we could say to our brand or our clients, here's how much traffic we think we're going to get, and here's how many sales we're going to get out of that traffic. But that's changed. I think like the channels in which we market on don't have the same predictability as Google search. People aren't going to our websites like they used to. They're scrolling on their feeds and going through their social plays. They're reading emails in their inbox. They're listening to podcasts on their commute. So we need to figure out what is the new playbook. And quite honestly, right now, we're trying to figure that out at HubSpot. This is new for us, and we've put some new investments into our content strategy, but we're figuring it out as we go.
We're figuring out at Haley Marketing as well. And that's why I wanted to bring you on the show. Friends, if you don't know, Kyle used to work at Haley. Right when I started, you were a social media marketing advisor right when I started as well. Now Kyle's over at HubSpot as the Senior Director of Marketing. Kyle, I think what's interesting about content as I see it is you can no longer just have this one sort of siloed approach, right? We can't just have written content or we can't just have video content. I think there's a growing need, and this has been here for a while, but in staffing and recruiting, it's really sort of just starting to catch on, of not having just one isolated, we create content in the form of X. I would assume you agree with that, right? We need to be sort of diversified in terms of our content portfolio.
Yeah, I would say we definitely need to diversify the content distribution, but at the same time, I don't want like marketers to get carried away. I think if you try to be everywhere, it's almost not sustainable, right? Like you want to really be specific and say, hey, where are my customers? Where are my prospects? Where do they hang out? Are they podcast listeners? Do they go to YouTube every week? Are they on LinkedIn? Like, where are they spending their time? And then once you can narrow that down to like 2 or 3 channels, then I think it's like, okay, I can build a content strategy that serves my audience on those 2 or 3 channels and be really, really comfortable with that. To your point, we're getting away from that single channel of organic search. I think we have to diversify beyond that at this point.
Talk to me, the small to mid-sized staffing firm owner. How do I know where my audience is consuming content? Is that a focus group? Is that research? Where do I, Brad Biley, the staffing owner in Buffalo, New York, learn where I should be posting content?
Yeah, I mean, one is talking to them, right? I mean, I think it's a people relationship business. So I do think talking to the job seekers, talking to the businesses you support, like, hey, what do your media consumption habits look like? Like, do you listen to podcasts? What are some of your favorite pods? Do you read newsletters? What are the newsletters you're subscribing to? So one is talking to them. 2 is I think you can do surveys. I mean, it's very inexpensive to spin up a SurveyMonkey account, send out an email to your job prospects or your clients and asking them similar questions like, what do you like to consume every week? And specifically when you're on the job hunt or you're looking to fill a job, where do you go for information? Like ask those follow-up questions. And the third thing I would say that I've seen a lot of people do is when you go to a website and say you're a staffing recruiting firm, someone's uploading their resume, they're submitting the form on your site, ask them. When they submit that on the thank you page, say, how did you hear about us? And ask, was it a podcast? Was it TV? Was it an email? Was it search? Like, where did you come from? I think all those little data points can be helpful. So you'll eventually be able to put together that strategy. I think you bring up a good point. Like the research and like talking to people is actually the hard work you have to do up front.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, without knowing where the fish are, right? You can't just cast a line anywhere and hope to find fish, right? So if you think about not knowing where your target audience is actively hanging out, you could be creating content for years and just having low readership, having low visibility. And it's not necessarily that the content is bad. It just might be in the wrong form. We have found over here, I mean, the podcast does very, very well from an audio standpoint. Right now, though, the full video clips don't really do that great. And that's okay. We still dump them out there. We still do what we can with them. Clip-wise, they do very, very well. Short clips, right? But our consumption, our listener of this show specifically, and even Insights, our other show, do very, very well from an audio standpoint. And that's okay. So Kyle, I think you make a good point. Obsess over the data, look at what's working, look at what's not, and explore doing more in the channel that is working well. Talk to me about, go ahead.
The one thing
please.
you just mentioned is you're doubling down on the audio, right? You've said, I'm going to do a long form show. I'm going to bring people expertise, commentary, industry news every week, and I'm going to commit to that. And then from there, you want to raise awareness for that show. And that's where the social and the video clips come into play. So I think you're right. That's the 2 or 3 channels I'm talking about. You have that anchor, which is your show. And then you're expanding distribution, because especially in the audio world, it's hard to get distribution for a show, as I think we both know. And so the social component is critical. It's like, let people know this exists and make sure that they can go find it on their own.
It's the short commercial, right? So for me, it's putting, if we drop your episode on Monday and I can run clips for 7 days or whatever it is, because, the next week after I have another show to run 7 more clips for, or whatever it is, for 7 days. It's the commercial that is teasing the full length, right? So you're funneling all of that back to the longer form piece of content. And for me, and maybe this gets us down a path of driving, personality driven content. I think having the personality is what gets people to want to see the content, right? To want to consume more of it, right? We can't have just faceless content anymore.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there's the human aspect of it, and then there's the algorithm aspect. Like on the human side, I think if you think about your own media consumption habits, like you listen to a certain podcast for the host, right? They're in your ear for 40 minutes a week, and you start to build an affinity with them. You see people in your social feed. You see people on YouTube. Like you want to hear from practitioners, like people who are doing the job, what's working, what's not working, and you build that human connection. So I do think from just a general like media consumption standpoint, we're more interested in people than institutions or brands. And then from an algorithm standpoint, this is where it's getting interesting, is the social algorithms and the search algorithms are now favoring that type of content, right? Google rolled out new algorithm updates earlier this year. They have these new content guidelines called EEAT guidelines that focus on expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness, and experience, and they want content from people who have done the thing to teach me how to do the thing myself. And so the websites that are starting to rank and do really well are like healthcare websites with articles written by nurses and doctors, because these are experts in their field who have research-backed experience that they can publish, and Google and the other algorithms are saying that's favorable. We're going to start to show that to our users. And so I think that as a brand, small business or a large brand, you have to take that into account. Okay, so my prospects and customers want to hear from me, and the algorithms are favoring like people. And so I think that the form, which you mentioned earlier, the form of the content matters now. And that's where I think, being personality led is actually going to help you succeed.
How do you find that personality? So as you know, in working at Haley, we work exclusively in the staffing and recruiting industry. talk to me, the owner who's listening here, saying, okay, I hear you. I get it. Personality driven content. I get it. I understand it. In my own sense, I understand that no one needs another article about what the score of the Bills game was yesterday. They want somebody's take. I want to know what Kyle thinks about the score of the Bills game. And then I want to know, more importantly, what that means for the outlook of the season, right? I want your opinion on it. And I fundamentally agree with that. But now talk to me, the staffing owner who is thinking, okay, of my team of 7, who's going to be that personality? Or if it's me, how do I showcase that personality? Where do I even get started?
Yeah, I think honestly, the fear of getting started actually holds a lot of people back. They're like, oh, I need the charisma and the style, and I have to be watchable on YouTube or social. I actually don't think that's the case. I think people just want to learn from really smart people. And so if I'm a small business owner, I run my own staffing and recruiting firm, there's a lot of people talking now about founder-led content, and I do think like you're the face of your company, and I think you should be out there. And I think you can do that in a smart way. You don't have to be overly promotional. If I'm someone who's running a firm, I may think, okay, so I want to get out there. Let's say I'm doing staffing and recruiting for the food and bev industry. Okay, well, my local restaurants and distributors, I want to connect with them. I think the best way to connect with them is probably through like a local publication about food and bev in Buffalo, New York. And so you start a newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter. It's authored by you. You get the byline, the founder, you're the expert, you're in the community, you understand what's working, what's not. And you're writing a newsletter on the state of the industry in Buffalo, how to grow your business, how to hire, how to cut costs, how to market your company, and you're providing value, right? So you're not promoting your company, you're just every week writing a newsletter that provides value to those companies and those job seekers that you're looking to connect with. And then from there, I would turn the newsletter into short form content, like we talked about earlier. Maybe that's a LinkedIn post with your perspective on the industry or what's going on in your local town or food and bev. I think that's where you get started. I really do think it starts with the founder. If the founder's not comfortable with it, I think you probably find someone who's a senior level individual at your company who's going to be there for quite some time, and you empower them to do this. Be the face of the company, get out there, publish content, publish your perspective. And I do think that attracts audiences. So I honestly, it's low cost. We're talking about just time when it comes to writing an email every week and a LinkedIn post. And you'd be surprised how impactful it can be.
Yeah, I had this thought a little while ago that everyone needs a coach, and why can't it be us? Why can't it be you? Why can't it be me? Right. So if you're thinking about running, you're trying to get better in the gym, you want to improve your finances, your relationship, your spirituality, whatever it might be. Everyone needs a coach, right? Everyone at the end of the day is looking for guidance in some area of their life. And when we think about finding your next job, or we think about hiring, that industry absolutely needs a coach, right? And I think where we struggle as an industry is being the coach that our audience needs, right? Either A, we're not ready to jump into the content creation. We don't know where to get started. We don't know what we should be talking about. And we get so in our own heads about it that we don't just say, listen, I've done this for 20 something years. If I got on a mic for 10 minutes and just talked to somebody else in my office about what they've been doing for 20 something years, that founder-led content would speak volumes to people who need the help. And why shouldn't we be the coach that they're looking for?
I love that. That's exactly right. It's like when I say a newsletter, right? I think like, what's the form? What's the content strategy? We don't want it to be like a legacy trade publication that just throws out headlines. I think to your point, like add value, like teach me. How do I find a job in this industry? What are some of the tactics I should be using? If I'm hiring, how do I think about hiring? Like, what do my costs look like? How many people do I need to run the front of the house? How many people do I need to run the back of the house? How should I think about staffing? How should I think about organizing my team? Yeah. You've been in the industry, you know those answers because you get on calls with prospects and customers all the time. You have the expertise. Right. Just share it. And put it in a way that's easy for people to understand.
Yeah, I think that's where most people in the industry get hung up is getting started. It's pressing record. It's thinking, oh, I need all of this gear. I need all this production studio. I need all this work. Or it's not for me because Kyle's already doing that, right? I don't want to necessarily. I can't do content because I already see him doing it in my space. And we overlook the fact that if everyone is looking for a coach and they're ultimately just looking for answers and guidance in this crazy world we live in, why can't it be us? Kyle, so I want to think about personality-driven content a little bit more. Where do we go from there? So we have our founder. Okay, we're going to sit him down in front of a webcam. We're going to sit him down in front of an iPhone, whatever it might be. Let's keep it super low cost. Then what? So he has. Are we teeing up? Are we going to a place like ChatGPT and saying, what are 25 things people in Buffalo, New York care about most, and answer these questions on camera? Help us. Help the listener. What then do we do?
Yeah. So I just want to go back to the point you mentioned about like low cost and then seeing other people doing the content. I think it's important, especially if I'm a staffing and recruiting owner, like niche down, right? Like you don't have to be everyone's coach. You just have to be the coach for your job seekers and your clients in your region. And so niche down, I use that example of like food and bev in Buffalo. Like that's a niche that you could go own and say, okay, I know this industry. I know how to hire for this industry. I know how to find jobs in this industry in my location. That's who I'm going to be the coach for. And it's okay to have, 500 subscribers or followers. That's awesome because they're engaged and they're folks who are interested in your service offering. And then when it comes to low cost, what you just said, it's that your iPhone is your best friend. I think like people assume there's these high-end cameras or mics they need to buy to do this thing. To be honest with you, sometimes I go on a walk with my dog. I throw in my headphones, I pull up my Apple Notes app and I use dictation and I just talk. And I'm like, here's an idea I have. Here's what I think's working. Here's what I think's not working. And then I get everything into the Notes app. And then I say, okay, how do I edit this down? That's a good outline. That's a good idea. I use Claude or GPT and say like, here are my notes. Can you help structure these into a bit of an outline and maybe some key takeaways for someone? And then those AI tools, they can provide you with the outline and then you go in and edit it, add your own personality, add your own examples. But in that example I just gave you, you're talking about the iPhone in your pocket and a $20 subscription to ChatGPT. These are low cost options for writing blog articles, newsletters. You want the original idea to come from you. That's the important part. The original idea that someone hasn't shared before, your expertise. And so that's what I would do. Honestly, that's where I would start. I would even, if you want to be ambitious and get into audio and video, like it'll work. It's just a long-term commitment. It's a little more expensive than the text-based content. But the foundation's the same. Just teach me, show me how to do the thing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Alex Hermosi, and he creates what is considered one of zero content. So what is content that absolutely nobody else is putting out, right? There in the staffing and recruiting industry, nobody needs another article about how to write your resume. Absolutely nobody needs that article. And no one's really even searching for that article anymore. They want, again, Kyle, to be taught. Yes, what goes into the perfect resume, but I need somebody who has seen thousands of resumes to tell me that answer. So it was actually on a recent episode, we were talking about trying to sort of continuously redefine this and think about this one of zero content. What is content that nobody else is putting out? For someone like a staffing owner who's done this for 20 years, you can literally say you've reviewed 25,000 resumes and these are the things that get people hired.
Yeah.
That is content that anyone would read that is looking for their next job. Now, in a lot of ways, Kyle, that might be the exact same tips that go into what makes the best resume. But when we package it and put a bow on it in a way of, I have 20 years experience in the industry. I've reviewed 25,000 plus resumes and I see these trends cut through the noise and get people hired. What job seeker is not going to read that article? And Kyle, I think that's where we're going. And that's sort of that, make it specific to me. Tell me what you know. Give me your take. Give me your personality on it. Be my coach. And the orders and the applications will follow.
100%. Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. We call it at HubSpot, we call it the editorial angle, right? And the
Okay.
packaging, the form that the content takes. Like
Mhm.
I just put a LinkedIn post out about this. Like, we know we want to target a keyword like LinkedIn growth strategy. Now, you could write an article, 10 tips on LinkedIn growth strategy, but to the point you
Yeah.
just made, let's go talk to someone who's actually grown their LinkedIn presence and turned that audience into revenue for their business. And let's cover
Mhm.
them. And like, let's talk to them about what's working, what's not working, and almost create this editorial angle that has legs and like anyone would read as to like, oh, I want to go do that thing. I'm going to learn from this person who's already done it. And
Yeah.
so I think no matter what industry you're in, no matter what type of business model you're in, like, people are looking for that information right now. I want to learn, and I want to learn from people who've done it before.
I think a lot of what we're talking about too almost future proofs us. I'm saying us as an industry, not us, you and I as marketers, but future proofs us as an industry as we're creating content.
Sure.
There are dozens, if not thousands, of tools that can help spit out your next resume article using AI. It can be done. It can be published. Sure. Will it be good? I don't know. Will it rank? Probably not. It can be done though, right? So this enables us the opportunity to future-proof your content and make it so unique to your organization that people have to read it. And when I think about, and we talked about this 10 years ago, Kyle, and this is part of content marketing that hasn't changed. We're inundated with messaging. We are absolutely overwhelmed by messaging. We're overwhelmed by people who want to be our coach. But we trust people that we know, we trust people we like, we trust people that we look up to. And as a result of that, we give them more of our business and we work with them. And it's because of that content that we do so. So where do we go from here? When we think about 2025, we think about content marketing as a whole. Give us, from your seat as Senior Director of Marketing at HubSpot, what are the 1 to 2 things that the staffing industry should know as it relates to content marketing?
Number one is, I think, fundamentally, you're still offering value in the form of education. I still think that will work. I don't think folks want to be overly promotional. I think content growth is done through providing news, expert commentary, expert point of view, how-tos. I think that is still the approach. The way in which we package that, I think, has changed. And I think it's going to take longer to develop the content because you want the expert point of view. And instead of just writing listicles, to your point, like faceless listicles, I think you need to start to bring things forward from your founders and people who work for you. I will say this, I think it comes down to, where do my audiences spend their time and what am I willing to spend on content? At HubSpot, our target audience is moving more towards audio and video. And so we're making investments there. I think you're seeing video in the social feeds. I think you're seeing YouTube outpace Netflix for consumption in the US. I think you're seeing more people and more investments going into Spotify and Apple. So I do think audio and video are preferred platforms for consumption. But at the same time, those can be a little more costly. So I think you need to ask yourself, like, what is my marketing investment I'm willing to make? At the end of the day, I think the best approach for staffing and recruiting firms would be to start a newsletter and a founder-led LinkedIn strategy to reach people in your local market and coach them and come up with different content pillars around job seeking, hiring, staffing and recruiting, growing a business, and then bring your perspective each and every week. And I want people to know, like, yes, there are podcasts or YouTube channels that release things 2-3 times a week. You don't have to do that. You have to know, okay, every Friday, I'm going to send a newsletter out at 10 a.m. to my subscribers, and I'm going to slowly grow my list over time. And then eventually, once your list gets to a certain size, that's when you can put offers and jobs in front of them. Send them links to your job board. Send them links to different offers when you're partnering with businesses. So that's where I would start. Start with the newsletter, start with LinkedIn. And I think that will help you start to build awareness for yourself and your company, and ultimately build an audience of followers and subscribers. And then once you get big enough, I do think moving into audio and video is the right move. It's just a little more expensive, and you need to be willing to, one, invest in production costs, and two, be willing to commit to it. None of these content strategies are short term. These are not going to get you applicants in the next 30 days. This is building a brand for the next 3 years.
And I think that is what a lot of people get hesitations about. Kyle, I can tell you, and I can name them, people that have listened to the show that I put out for years who are now finally coming to Haley Marketing, have listened to webinars that I've given for years that are now coming to Haley Marketing. One individual that I talked to, she's actually local. She said, Brad, I've been following you since the show started, and is finally now coming to us for help because now is the right time for her. Friends, it's not an overnight solution. If you need an overnight solution, that's a completely different strategy that I would love to talk to you about. But if we want to future-proof our business and also almost work like a savings account, work almost not a savings account, a retirement plan, right? Where we're constantly putting finances into a retirement plan, finances meaning your content to build you a brand for the future. This is absolutely the right play and absolutely what you should be doing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in the near term, if you need leads or sales in 30 days, we're talking a paid marketing program, right? We need to get in front of an audience now and convert them. Campaigns, events, any digital ads on Meta or Google. But when it comes to like building a brand that compounds over time and that you can build quality relationships with an audience and sell to that audience, I think at least at HubSpot, I can tell you of all our content programs, and we have quite a few, newsletters have the highest lead to qualified lead ratio because we're engaging with that audience every single week. And when they're ready to buy, they click and they're ready to talk to our sales team. And so I think you nailed it. It's like people will follow you on LinkedIn. They will listen to your show. They will read your newsletter, and they're not going to come to your business today. But 24 months from now, when they're ready, they're going to see you as the expert, and you're going to be top of mind, and they're going to go right to your website and want to talk to somebody. And I think that's the investment folks are making. And at the end of the day, that's the investment that's actually going to provide more revenue for your business long term. If you keep chasing the short-term 30-day spikes, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. You have to have a content foundation first and then build on top of it.
It's not sustainable, and it's also going to drive you crazy, right? If you're thinking about, well, what's going to change tomorrow, and you're constantly doing new things, right? Like, yes, we need new sales strategies. We need new sales, I guess, tactics, that would be, right? Where we're changing things are evolving, but you're absolutely going to go insane if you're constantly trying to tweak that and make new changes. It's not worth it.
No, and I love you brought up the sales component, because the sales enablement piece is important here, right? So if you're not just promoting products and you align with your sales leader and say, look, I'm going to put out a weekly thought leadership piece or a publication or an episode, you can use these tools you and I have been talking about to repackage that transcript and put it into the form of an outreach email, a prospecting email. And it actually builds a relationship with a prospect, because you're saying to them, hey, I hope you're having a great week. We actually just published this really interesting article on how to organize the front of house for your restaurant. I thought you may be interested. You're offering them value. You're not asking for anything in return. And they're probably finding that really helpful as they're going through building their business. And your sales team will actually have more success. Like at HubSpot, our sales team, the folks who are doing the outbound communications, they use our content all the time because they're building a relationship. And 90 days from now, 6 months from now, when someone's in the market to buy software, then they'll say to them, hey, Brad, thanks for all those comms. Can we get on the call? Like, I'd love to talk to you about your tool that you offer me. And I think that's the right move. I think you'll see higher quality prospects coming in.
Yeah, I guess just one final thought here maybe is the necessity of integrating content marketing and all marketing with your sales functions, with your recruiting functions. And I think in a lot of ways, and even when I'm consulting with people throughout the industry, it's a silo, right? A marketer is sitting down or a marketing team is sitting down and they're coming up with content and they're thinking, okay, I think this will work. I think this speaks to our target audience. Instead, and I just had I was on a great webinar. Well, at time of recording, it was a little while ago, the staffing playbook, where we talked about, yes, you might have a 10-step sales process, but that's not enough. If it takes 20 plus touches for someone to even know your business exists, a 10-step sales process is fundamentally falling short. Marketing, ads, content, email, direct mail, that gets you to the 20 plus. And where I think a lot of the industry right now is failing is we're doing the 10-step process. We trust consultant X, whatever it might be, whoever it might be. And I trust all those people too. I love all those people. They're great. But there is marketing that should also coincide with that sales effort in the form of content, ads, email, direct mail. And now we actually give ourselves a fighting chance because 10 steps is not nearly enough in 2024.
Yeah. No. Isn't your sales team going to be happier if their deal to close rate goes up 3%? It's going to go 100%. Up because they have warm leads to work because of the marketing team, right? Like the companies that fail, the marketing and sales team are not aligned. That's the issue. You have to be able to start, to your point, with, okay, what qualifies someone as a good lead for my sales team? And then from there, reverse engineer that out and say, okay, how do I get someone to take that action? Well, I need them to come to my website and I need them to download something or I need them to subscribe. Okay, how do I get them to my website? Well, there's organic search, there's social, there's email, there's these other channels. I'm going to invest in email and LinkedIn as my social play. And then your sales team knows, oh, that's the playbook. My founder is reaching people on LinkedIn 3 times a week. They're moving people into subscribe to my newsletter. We're growing the subscriber list. And every couple weeks, we're sending an email to that subscriber list about new jobs on our job board or an opportunity to talk to our sales team. And that funnel that you build, the sales team needs to be well aware of it and support it because it's going to benefit them in the long run. If marketing is just trying all these tactics and the sales team's like, these qualified leads that are coming in, these leads that are coming in are not qualifying. My close rates stink. They're going to blame marketing. They're not going to blame themselves. Right. And so I think you need to sit down at the beginning of the year and sit down with your sales leader and your marketing leader and say, okay, what's the funnel we're building this year? It's going to be a content driven go to market. Here are the plays we're going to run and watch those inbound leads go up. And when they go up, your sales team is going to be happy.
Kyle, I could talk about this stuff all day, man. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you
all day
and everything that you do in terms of content marketing, specifically at HubSpot. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, where can they look for you? LinkedIn. I'm trying to share a little more on LinkedIn. I think I'm going to start a newsletter later this year, just to send out weekly frameworks and strategies that have worked for us at HubSpot. Hopefully they can help folks in staffing and recruiting, but hit me up on LinkedIn. We'll connect and let me know if you have any questions. I love talking about this. Before I let you go, I got to run you through our rapid fire round. One book that has fundamentally changed your life.
Let's see, gosh, there's a lot of them. One recently, I read The Psychology of Money, by Morgan Housel. Morgan used to write for The Motley Fool. He took a lot of his articles from The Motley Fool, published this book, really helped me just rethink, my personal and family finances. Like, how do I set my family up for success long-term? And I really liked how plain spoken the articles were, helpful framework for building up wealth for our family and thinking through that. That one was a game changer for me as a journalism major. I didn't take too many investment or finance classes.
Yeah, me either. And I should have. And second question, one piece of advice that you would give to somebody just starting in staffing and recruiting, what would you tell them?
Position yourself as actually, let's say this. First and foremost, listen. Like talk to the owner of the firm, talk to folks who have been there, talk to job seekers, and just ask really thoughtful questions. I think you're going to get a lot of insights just from talking to people. And then once you gain enough information, position yourself as an expert. Like try to build up your personal brand. I know that's a term people throw around, but I do think right now some of the smartest people I'm seeing online are positioning themselves as experts and go-to for information in their industry. I think that's the move. I think listen, gain as much information as you can, and then position yourself as an expert.
He's Kyle Denhoff. He's the Senior Director of Marketing at HubSpot. Kyle, first off, great to talk to you, buddy. Glad you're doing well. Great to have you back on the show and have that Haley marketing connection from, almost nearly a decade ago. So I appreciate you, buddy, and appreciate your time this afternoon.